Assalamu alaikum. My name is Vekan Kayali and welcome to Practical Islamic Finance. Today we're going to talk about Teledoc, ticker symbol TDOC. I'm going to start my analysis with giving it a halalness rating, and then we're going to move on to talk about whether I think it's a buy or not, and if it is a buy, at what price. So without further ado, let's get started. If you're looking to get started with investing and you're not sure where to buy your stocks, check out M1 Finance. It takes a portfolio approach to investing and it restricts trades to a certain time of day, so investors are encouraged to focus on the long term and ignore short-term fluctuations in price, which I think is a good thing. If you'd like to try out M1 Finance, it's a completely free service, and if you'd like to do so while supporting the channel, please do use the link in the description below. If you live in the United States and you need halal funding, go to fundmebff.com. Applying for funding is free and it doesn't affect your credit score. You can use the funding for basically anything. Alternatively, if you earn more than $200,000 annually and you're looking for a halal investment to make, one that pays out monthly distributions and has had a risk-adjusted return that was superior to all of the major asset classes in the last 3 years, basically since our inception, go to fundmebff.com and apply to become an investor. Okay, so like with all of my analyses, I like to start with understanding what the business does. In the case of Teledoc, in a nutshell, they provide 24/7 access to medical professionals through their Teledoc app. Here's a quick demo of how their product works.
You've got a better way to get the care you need, when you need it, wherever you happen to be. You've got Teledoc. Teledoc gives you access to U.S. board-certified, state-licensed doctors within minutes, by web, phone, or mobile app.
Hello, I'm Dr. Jones. I've had a chance to look over your medical history. What are we having trouble with today?
The doctor will discuss your symptoms, diagnose the issue, and if medically necessary, a prescription will be sent to the pharmacy you selected. Take as much time as you need. There is no time limit. The doctor will answer all of your questions.
Okay, so I think the product that Teledoc offers is rather straightforward, easy to understand. Let's talk about whether Teledoc as an investment is halal or haram. Teledoc earns its revenue from two primary sources, the first being subscription fees and the second is one-time visit fees. So we can comfortably say that neither of its two sources of revenue are suspect in any way. Now, as it relates to Teledoc's financials, I dove into those financials to make sure that everything was zabiha, and basically it does have an interest expense, but when you compare the interest expense to its overall expenses, it's only 4% of its overall expenses. So I'm confident in saying that dealing and paying with interest is not a key component of Teledoc's business. So based on this analysis, I'm comfortable in giving Teledoc a 9 out of 10 halalness score. Now let's talk about Teledoc as an investment. Just thinking about this logically, telemedicine and telehealth in general seem like a no-brainer to me. The technology already exists. It saves people the hassle of going to the doctors. It cuts down on costs. So the average visit to the doctor's office in the United States costs around $125, whereas with a telemedicine provider, it costs around $45. It allows medical services to be extended to remote and rural areas, and it protects medical staff, doctors, patients from getting sick from other patients. So as a product that makes sense and provides value, it's really a no-brainer for me. Now let's look at some of the numbers to make sure that our logical analysis of the need for this service conforms with what we see in reality. So in the United States, over the past 5 years, telehealth services, the market for telehealth services that is, has been growing at around 25% annually. And it's projected to continue to grow at 25% annually for the next 5 years. And since this estimate of 25% market growth annually happened prior to COVID-19, I think that this estimate is probably low. I think that probably the right number is around 40%. So you're going to experience 40% growth every year for at least the next 3 years. Why do I think that 40% is probably going to be a more accurate number? Well, if you look at the number of visits in the United States alone, for example, total visits to doctor's offices or the ER or to urgent care total are around 1 billion visits annually. According to the American Medical Association, 75% of those 1 billion visits could be done safely and effectively either through video or phone. So that means there are 750 million visits that the telehealth industry could serve. Now, if you look at Teledoc, which is one of the largest players in the industry, they are forecasted to do 8 to 9 million visits in the year 2020. So one of the largest players is doing 8 to 9 million. The total addressable market is 750 million. So I think there is a lot of room for growth here for Teledoc and for other players as well. And given the accelerant of recent events and dealing with quarantine and the need for telehealth services becoming more apparent, I think 40% is more likely to happen than the 20 or 25% that were projected in 2019. So anytime you have an industry that's projected to grow at 40% annually over the coming few years, this is an industry that an investor like myself would be rather attracted to. What attracted me specifically to Teledoc is the fact that it is the only pure play on telehealth services that is publicly traded as of today. Now, if we analyze Teledoc specifically, some of the things that it has going for it is that it has reach in around 175 countries. So the market for Teledoc is way larger than just the US market. Gross margins for this company are around 60%, and it has been growing its revenue around 60% for the last 4 to 5 years. There is one knock on Teledoc, and that is the fact that it hasn't been profitable yet. However, this is a growth company, and this is expected of growth companies that really are investing a lot into growth. But importantly, it is forecasted to post a profit by 2022, and it has enough cash to get it there. So it has around $500 million in cash. And if you look at the cash burn for this company in Q1 of 2020, their cash burn was around $7 million. So they have more than enough cash to get them to profitability. So Teledoc is definitely an investment that I'm interested in. But now the question that presents itself is, at what price? I ran a few numbers to figure out how much I'd be willing to pay for Teledoc today. Okay, so I did the following napkin math, if you will, to figure out at what price do I have a good chance to earn my target return of 30% annually on an investment in Teledoc. So everything you see above this blue line, these numbers all have already happened in full, with the exception to 2020, where Q1 is in the books, but the rest of the year is not. However, the $815 million in revenue came from the guidance that the management provided for the rest of the year. This means that revenue growth for the past years has been 89% between 2016 and 2017, then 79% the year after, 27% the year after that, and then 52% in 2020. And this is largely because of the accelerant effect that COVID-19 has had on the adoption of telemedicine services. Now, at the current share price of $192 a share, which means that the market capitalization of the company is $14.3 billion, the price to sales ratio, if we compare the current market capitalization with what we think the revenue is going to be for 2020, that multiple is at 18. Now, 18 is a very rich multiple for price to sales. So I think that this multiple is going to come down over time. So in 2021, I assumed it would be 16, 2022, 14, 2023, 12. Now, this is not a science, obviously. Who knows what it's going to be, but this is my estimation. Essentially, I estimate that it's going to revert over time to the mean. And the mean for these types of companies is around 10. Now, in the column next to it, you see my projections for revenue growth over the next 3 years, which is 40% every year for the next 3 years. And this seems reasonable to me when you compare it with the last 4 years in which revenue growth was averaging 60% a year. So if these two assumptions that I've made hold up, wherein revenue growth is 40% and the price to sales for next year was at 16, this would mean that the annualized return on an investment in Teledoc today would yield 27%. If my assumptions for the second year held as well, this would mean that the annualized return on an investment in Teledoc at its current price today would be 25.1%. And again, this is an annualized return, so it means 25% is the return I achieved every year for the last 2 years, if these assumptions hold up. And then if the third year's assumptions hold up, then the annualized return would be 23%. Now let's see, what is the price of Teledoc that would yield me the 30% target that I have? So with some calculations, it turns out that the market capitalization would have to be 12.2 billion, which is rather close to where it is right now, in order for me to achieve a 30% annualized return every year for the next 3 years, assuming, of course, that my assumptions that are in these blue boxes hold up to be true. So what I'm going to do over the next 2 to 3 months is build up a position in Teledoc stock until I reach my target rate for Teledoc stock in my portfolio. Again, there's no guarantee that this happens. In fact, it's likely not going to happen exactly as I drew it out. But this just gives me a ballpark in terms of valuation for the company, whether it's too expensive or not, considering my goals of achieving a 30% return. Okay, so that was my analysis of Teledoc stock. Please do leave a like if you liked anything in this video. Subscribe for more content. Consider using the link in the description if you'd like to try out M1 Finance. Check out fundmebff.com if you live in the United States and you're looking for halal funding. Also, if you're looking for a halal investment that pays out monthly distributions and has beat the major asset classes in the last 3 years since our inception, check out fundmebff.com and apply to become an investor. Until next time, make sure to take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum and peace be upon you all.